You know, I always know when the News One Now show is going to be shaky, and how I know that is when Roland Martin's face is not up there giving the rundown on what's going to happen. Anyway, I was watching the following clips from News One, and I'll just make commentary on my exceptions to what how the show was handled and what some of the guys were saying.
America should not be poisoned. Federal government comes in, federal government acts.
What is more important than the health and well-being of the people, particularly children? It is raining lead in Flint.
Now that, and again, that was Clinton's pretty much best line as far as the debate was concerned, and that occurred at the very beginning of the debate. Now, I'm sorry, I jumped past the attorney portion of this. All he was talking about basically was the lawsuits being filed. He believes approximately 8,000 children will be affected, and they're going to be part of the class action lawsuit. They're considering right now filing a separate lawsuit for the wrongful deaths of the 10, I believe it's 10 people that died of Legionnaire disease that is affiliated with this water situation. But I decided to jump past all that. If you want that, you can go back in on to the News One website and pick that up. I'm jumping to this part because of the stupid-ass Republican guy that wanted to basically throw this off on Democrats being elected. The guy had absolutely no basis for his statements. Anyway, let's go.
You know, listening to the debate and both Bernie Sanders and Senator Clinton talking about the governor needs to resign, and this is a civil lawsuit. Somebody's got to go to prison behind this.
Absolutely. Several people have to go to prison behind this. You have dead people. You have children who will be impacted. Their brains are damaged for the rest of their lives. And this was a knowing action that not only occurred initially, but perpetuated despite the fact that the citizens were telling the government something's wrong with that water. In fact, they were lied to and told that everything's okay. There's criminality all over this, so while a civil suit, I agree, is appropriate, criminal action needs to quickly follow.
Andrew?
Yeah, this is a failure of government at all levels. I think that the response we've seen has been from the federal level to the state level. No one seems to know what's going on. The residents, as Dr. Weaver stated, has been talking about this for years, and it's been on deaf ears from Congress to the State House to the State Department of Environment, Water Equality to the EPA. Everyone keeps shifting the blame, but nothing is actually being done. And I actually think, we might need to get the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in here to replace the pipes. I mean, Congress needs to authorize the funding. I know that there are several holdups right now, and they're still working out some of the details. I know Governor Snyder is set to testify. There's a lot of questions here, and it just seems that the administration keeps shifting blame.
Yeah, and the holdup is Ted Cruz not signing off on this thing, letting it come out of congressional committee. Everybody else has given it the thumbs up so that they can get the funding to get those dollars in there to get this problem fixed. But as usual, Ted Cruz is being an obstructionist. Now, remember that Mr. Lee stated that this is a failure on the federal level, which it somewhat is because the EPA was involved, but definitely on the state level. Okay, the federal failure with the EPA, obviously, it is what it is. But the failure to provide the funds is the direct fault of a Republican. The failure on the state level is Governor Snyder all the way down to his Department of Environmental Quality, which those were his appointees, and his emergency manager that formulated this plan to go on the Flint River water, and the second emergency manager who made the decision to flip the switch to actually use that water.
I mean, really, I
actually do think that we know what's going on. This is about environmental racism. This is about, this happened with Katrina.
Yes.
Anytime there are large groups of black people that are impacted by an environmental issue, all of a sudden we don't understand politics. We don't understand what's happening in a community. If this was a white community, the entire nation would be up in arms. And I actually think that the organizing that's happening in the state of Michigan is incredible. But at the end of the day, voters need to hold these people accountable and get these people out of office that do not care about people of color and our ability to have clean water.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm not going to go that far because, I'm not going to say it absolutely is racism, but I'm going to say it's classism because because Flint, first of all, it is a majority black city, but not that great of a majority. There's a whole bunch of white people that live in Flint. But because of the economic condition of Flint, that's why nobody basically reacted. There is a town in I believe it's Pennsylvania. It's either Pennsylvania or Ohio. I forget which one it is. The town had actually it's had because it doesn't have that problem any longer. They discovered that they had a lead problem. They went to work within 4 days of it becoming public knowledge, which, and again, it took a month for the knowledge to become public. But once the knowledge became public, within 4 days, they were reacting to the problem. People were fired, and I mean, they were fired on the spot. And they were already in there digging and removing pipes. That hasn't happened for Flint. But again, I'm not going to say that it's racism because black people and white people were affected irregardless. I am going to say it's classism because Flint, again, is a poor town. Now, that town in Pennsylvania, Ohio, that was a middle to upper middle class town with a bunch of people that were of some pretty good means.
I mean, I think it's sad that Flint has voted for Democrats for over 80 years.
See, now this asshole is talking about Flint voting for Democrats for over 80 years. Guess what, asshole? Democrats didn't do this. A Republican appointed emergency manager, actually it was two of them that did it. The Republican designated environmental quality people, again, the governor appointed them. All those people are direct reports to the governor, and the governor is a goddamn Republican. So where the fuck you coming up with this democratically generated problem? That's a bunch of bullshit. The Democratic mayor is the one who actually got in there and brought a lot of attention to this thing, and she's the one that's actually getting something done. So what the hell do you have to say about that?
And this isn't necessarily a partisan issue, but I think this is indicative of what's happening across the country in urban areas where African Americans and other groups were voting against our interests. We're voting for people, not holding them accountable all the time. I know that the city went into receivership, and there's a lot going on with the governor trying to cut costs and clearly not trying to cut too much instead of actually doing what needed to be done to make sure that the water was clean and pure for
Under a Republican governor. I mean, let's be very clear about that.
I didn't understand the voting for Democrats part when the governor is Republican.
No, exactly.
I say that in a lot of cities and states across the country, we have Democratic governors, we have Democratic mayors. Violence is up, crime is up. I think Flint is indicative. Like I said, there are 19 places in Pennsylvania that have higher water levels, higher lead levels than Flint does.
See, this asshole, now all of a sudden he got caught and now he's trying to spin. Oh, I wasn't just, really talking about Flint. I was talking about places all across the country. We're talking about Flint. Stay on point.
But the Democratic mayor actually on this show, the Democratic mayor said that she had been trying to tell the governor and the government of Michigan that something was happening. So to me, you're right, it's not even about being partisan, but I don't think it's a matter of, the Democratic mayor versus the Republican governor. I think it's a matter of when something happens to black people, all of a sudden the entire nation gets amnesia.
Yeah, but my only point is that stuff has been happening to black people for a long time, and there are black people in charge, and nothing is changing.
Yeah, but what happens when stuff happens to black people and white people are in charge? You don't have anything to say about that. These Republicans, I don't know if they're handpicked to be idiots when they come on Roland's show, But pretty much most of these guys, even these black men that are Republicans, you know, they just sound so foolish.
Well, there's another big issue that is